Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be a little bit late of a May reading wrap up. I did read 11 books in the month of May and DNF'd one, so I have 12 books to chat with you about. So if you're interested in hearing about the books that I read last month and what I thought of them, then just keep on watching. Let's start off with my DNF and get it out of the way. I did end up DNFing Petit Anglais by Catherine Sanderson. The years that this has been on my shelf, I really thought it was a romance, but it is in fact a memoir following Catherine Sanderson as she creates and writes her blog called Petit Anglais. She is a British expat living in Paris, and it's following her life as she's finding true love. However, she's cheating on her long-term partner and father of her child to do so, and that's just not for me. I could not read about this woman's life any longer. After that, I read the third and fourth book in the Vicious Lost Boys series by Nikki St. Crow. I read Their Vicious Darling and The Fae Princes. I gave both of these like 3 stars. This series is a dark fantasy romance series. It's a Peter Pan retelling, and it is why choose between Winnie, who is our darling girl, Peter Pan, Vane, and 2 of the Lost Boys. It is dark, it is vicious, but I really loved the first book in this series, and that kind of went downhill for me personally. It was still really enjoyable. It's like a 3.5-star series for me, but I was just finding my enjoyment waning with each book. They are under 300 pages. They're really quick reads to get through, but the series just turned out to be not a favorite. I finally got to The Wife Between Us by Greer Hendricks and Sarah Pekkanen. This is again a book that has been on my shelves for so long. This is a domestic psychological thriller, and I ended up giving this 2.5 stars. I don't understand what the hype was with this. I know there's not really hype anymore, but this was more hyped a long time ago when I bought the book, and this just wasn't very thrilling for me. I found a lot of the hoops that our main character had to go through were super unnecessary, and then something I have discovered about myself is that I've been hating the epilogues in thriller books specifically. It's always just like an added twist thrown in that really didn't need to be there and didn't make sense. This is a very like nothing book for me. I gave it 2.5 stars because 2 for me is like I did not like it, and 3 is I did like it and might recommend, and this just gave me nothing. Next is a part of my TBR Takedown series that I am doing on my TikTok. I read Inkheart by Cornelia Funk. This is the first book in a middle grade fantasy series, and I gave this 4 stars. In this book, we're following Maggie and her father, Mo, but when Mo reads aloud from stories, things start switching places. Things emerge from the pages of the book, but you have to switch with something similar to go into the book out of your real life, and that can get very, very dangerous. And this was just a really fun time. I think this is a book that my children will like, and I have all 3 in the trilogy. I will definitely be keeping those, and I was able to find this really cool like almost square copy. This is actually an ARC edition, and it has the details of the release on the back. Expected publication date is October 2003. Very old. It says most appropriate for ages 11 to 15. And I would agree with that. I think kids in that age range would really enjoy this book. Then I finally finished Little Women by Louisa May Alcott. This is a classic, and this was just so wholesome. Like such a wholesome classic for me. I got similar feelings reading this as I did Anne of Green Gables, like a coming home cozy feel. This follows 4 sisters, the March sisters, and them growing up. This deals with a lot of topics of family and sisterhood, and even though I don't have sisters or daughters, this just felt like a hug of a book, and I really enjoyed it. I will be getting a more beautiful addition to have on my shelves. Next, Sam and I buddy read Hopeless by Elsie Silver. This is the 5th and final book in the Chestnut Spring series. This one we're following Bo Eaton, who is the brother that is in the military, and Bailey, the town's bartender. I almost said barkeeper, as if I'm still like in a fantasy novel. And I gave this 4 stars. The whole Chestnut Spring series, I gave them all 4, 4.5, 5 stars. Love the series overall, but I think this might be my least favorite book. Bailey is a virgin, and the virginal trope just doesn't always work for me. However, at least Bailey is not like the super naive type character, but it always turns into like a teach me situation with our spicy scenes, and that just doesn't really work the best for me. I don't know. It was my least favorite, but still a 4-star read. Still really enjoyed my time with in here, and the banter was also really good. Also, I didn't mention this in my TikTok review. The bathtub scene, that was not for me. After that, I read Gallows Hill by Darcy Coates, a horror novel. Why did I do that to myself? I don't know. We are following Margot, who discovers that her parents have passed away, but she has grown up with either a grandmother or an aunt. But she, after her parents pass, realizes that their estate or their house on Gallows Hill is now hers. And there's a lot of spooky things going on here. We don't know if it is like the town playing tricks, if there's something paranormal happening. We're not really sure. I've never been more scared in my life reading a book. It was broad daylight. I was soaking up the sunshine in my hammock. It's a beautiful day, literally heart-pounding scared reading this book. I could not read it at nighttime, that is for sure. The plot moves at a breakneck speed. It does everything it set out to do, but it was not a 5-star for me because there was a few pieces of the puzzle that felt a little clunky to me, such as Margot's scars and like the falling out in the relationship with her parents. So for that reason, I gave it like a 4+ star. Like, it was definitely a super scary horror novel. It was fast-paced, and I was really invested in what happened to Margot, which is why I didn't DNF it. And I have confirmed that horror is just not for me because I am such a baby. Next, I read Devourer of Men by Nikki St. Crow. This is a spin-off novel from the Vicious Lost Boys series, and in this one we're following the Crocodile, Captain Hook, and Wendy Darling. And this was so good. It was an MMF romance, and once again it was under 300 pages. I devoured this book, pun intended. There were a few parts that I was really enjoying that I wish we could have expanded upon more. Like, this could have been longer than the Vicious Lost Boys books were, and that would have been even better for me. So this was a 4-star read, and I'm happy to be finally catching up on some of these series in that I can read a new release very soon after it comes out. I think this came out in May, and I read it in May, which is really exciting. After that, I read The Inmate by Frida McFadden. I gave this 3 stars. This is my 2nd or 3rd Frida McFadden book, and I can totally get why people call these popcorn thrillers. They're fast-paced, they're very quick to read. This one is under 400 pages. It's compulsively readable. However, this one, we're following Brooke, who returns to her hometown and gets a job at the local men's prison, but she leaves out the fact that one of the men in this prison is someone that she put away when she was a teenager or a young adult. And so she gets the job there as a nurse, which that just also doesn't make sense. But anyway, so this is a thriller involving her and the inmate, right? Brooke has to be one of the most naive adult characters I have ever read from. There were so many things in here that were 100% a red flag, and she just keeps on going. I don't know. It just didn't make much sense to me. I'm learning that Freida McFadden, yes, quick reads, they can be fun, but they're not necessarily good. There's usually things that make no sense, and a lot of her twists just like completely come out of left field for the shock factor. It's entertaining and fun to read, but if you actually think about it, like it doesn't make sense. And I am a quite logical type person, and I need for things to make sense, so I gave it 3 stars. Only 2 more books to chat about. I read Daisy Hates by Jessa Hastings. This is the second book in the Magnolia Parks universe. This has a very similar timeline to the first book, but we are following Daisy Hates, Julian Hates, her brother, and Christian, Daisy's love interest, question mark. I gave this 4 stars and I had a really fun time. I love a heist plotline, which we get in here, and I really like the crime, like mafia family dynamics. The Hates family is quite sus, if you will. They're doing a lot of shady things, and we get to see a lot of the behind the scenes in here, which is really interesting. I do like Daisy more than Magnolia, and I definitely prefer Christian over BJ. BJ is just so insufferable to me, but it's still just like not hitting. I am looking forward to starting in on the second Magnolia Parks book / book 3 and seeing how I feel, because I feel like there was quite a time gap between reading these, but I was concerned that the timelines overlapping would get a bit repetitive since we're following like a tight-knit friend group, but actually there were very few scenes in which you would be like, oh yes, I do remember that happening in the first book, and we're getting it from a different perspective, and there's so many other things going on in these books that it didn't feel repetitive to me at all. Lastly, we ended on a very high note once again. This happened in April as well, which I love that. But this is my only 5-star for the month of May, and that is Mr. Wrong Number by Lynn Painter. I just lent this to my mom, so I don't have it to share with you. In this book, we are following Olivia Marshall, who one night gets a "what are you wearing" winky face type text, and it is a wrong number, of course. And this just turns into a really funny, bantery time. Olivia is kind of a hot mess. She is full of bad luck. This is a laugh out loud rom-com. It is a little bit ridiculous, but I really needed this. It was the perfect pick-me-up. I was smiling and laughing the whole time, but I absolutely love this, and I gave it 5 stars. So those are all the books that I read in the month of May. Let me know your favorite May read in the comments down below. And if you did enjoy this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up so that I know, and I will see you in my next one. Bye!